Training to failure is necessary, but it is not enough. This phrase summarizes one of the most common mistakes in the interpretation of heavy duty. Many people believe that Mike Mentzer's system boils down to do every set until you can't do any more. But the reality is that his method went much further. Mentzer always clarified, muscular failure is the indispensable requirement to stimulate growth, but intensity must be joined with precision, recovery, and logical progression. Without these factors, training to failure is just pain without results. In this chapter, we are going to debunk myths and finally understand why training to failure, by itself, does not guarantee progress, and how Mentzer designed his system so that intensity would transform into real growth. I invite you to pay close attention, take notes, and share this video with others who still believe that heavy duty is simply training to failure. What we will cover today: 1. Muscular failure according to Mike Mentzer. What momentary muscular failure really means. The difference between technical failure and absolute failure. What Mentzer said about the need to push beyond the limit. 2. Failure as a stimulus, not a goal. Why training to failure does not ensure growth if there is no recovery. The mistake of bodybuilders who only seek to feel the burn or exhaust themselves. Mentzer, the stimulus is only the cause. Growth occurs afterward, during rest. 3. Factors that make failure effective. Intensity plus recovery plus progression equals the heavy-duty formula. Examples. 2 people train to failure but only one progresses. Why? The role of volume, frequency, and rest. 4. Beyond failure. Advanced techniques with purpose. Rest, pause, pre-exhaustion, controlled negatives. How Mentzer used these techniques to go beyond failure without falling into overtraining. The principle of brevity and exactness. Trained less, but better. 5. Practical and mental conclusion. Failure is the trigger, but not the complete bullet. What you must apply from today: record your workouts, analyze your recovery, use failure as a tool within a complete system. Training hard is easy. Training smart is what very few do. Mike Mentzer insisted that bodybuilding should be scientific, not emotional. Reaching failure might make it seem like you did what was necessary, but the physiological reality is more complex. If you don't manage rest, nutrition, frequency, and progression, failure becomes just a theater of suffering. What we will understand today is that heavy duty is not simply training to failure. It is training with intelligence, precision, and logic. So, if you want to grow as Mentzer proposed, don't settle for failure. Turn every failure into a measured stimulus, followed by optimal recovery, and you will see real progress. Section 1. Muscular failure. According to Mike Mentzer, extensive and practical. Quick note: when I talk about failure here, I am referring to the operational definition that Mentzer used and the practical way to execute and record it. It is not a feeling or a myth, it is a measurable and technical signal. 1. What does momentary muscular failure really mean? Practical definition. Momentary muscular failure is the point in a set where, despite giving maximum effort, you cannot complete another repetition with correct technique. It is 100% momentary effort, not almost, not with cheating. For Mentzer, this point was the minimum requirement for a set to be a valid stimulus. How to recognize it in practice: clear signals. The bar dumbbell stops moving in the concentric phase, even though you are pushing with all your might. If you attempt an extra contraction, your arm shortens or your form breaks. This indicates you have already reached or are at technical failure. See below. Maximum breathing, lack of neural drive to complete the contraction, and the feeling of having squeezed all the recruitable fibers in that range. And cadence. Why is it important? Because only at or very near failure are the high threshold fibers. Type 2, the most anabolic ones, recruited. Without this recruitment, the powerful cellular signal that initiates strength, hypertrophy adaptations does not arrive. This logic is central to heavy duty. Maximum intensity equals maximum recruitment equals stimulus. 2. Difference between technical failure and absolute failure. How to tell them apart and why it matters. A technical failure. What it is. Technical failure occurs when form degrades. Swinging, arching the back, shortening ROM, bouncing the weight, using hip momentum, etc. Here, do not consider that the set reached valid failure. What happened was that your system sought mechanical shortcuts to finish the repetition. Consequence: the signal for the target muscle is diluted and the risk of injury increases. Record in your logbook: failed due to technique, and do not count that rep as effective. Be absolute failure. Real momentary muscular failure. Absolute failure or momentary muscular failure in the strict sense is when, while maintaining technique, you cannot perform another repetition. Cheating is impossible without losing form. That is the rep that Mentzer considered the one that counts. Record strict reps until technical correct failure. If form breaks before that last rep, does not count as an effective set. See concrete example: bench press in the gym. Technical failure. You attempt the 9th rep and start to arch your back to momentum it gives, does not count as valid failure. Stop before cheating. Valid absolute failure. The 8th rep is completed with good form. You attempt the 9th and the bar doesn't move up even 1 centimeter. Even though you push with everything gives, that is the failure that counts. 3. What Mentzer said about forcing beyond the limit. and how to interpret it today. Mentzer stated that attempting the momentary impossibility, striving to reach the incapacity to complete another strict repetition, was essential to produce the stimulus. However, he also emphasized that taking it further, chronically doing forced reps, accumulating destruction techniques without recovering, could be counterproductive if recovery was not respected. In his system, failure was a tool, not an end in itself. Does that mean always go beyond failure, forced reps, negatives? No. Mentzer used intensifiers, negatives, rest pause, occasionally assisted reps, only as an occasional resource for advanced athletes, and also controlled recovery and frequency. It was not a recommendation for a daily routine. The rule: use intensifiers sparingly and on machines or safe patterns, and always plan extra recovery days after their use. For how to apply all this with precision: practical steps, gym and home. A. Before the set preparation. Specific warm-up. 2 progressive warm-up sets, for example, 40% times 12, 60% times 6. Do not fatigue. Define the cadence to use, for example, 2 S concentric for S eccentric, and note it in your logbook. Fixed cadence equals reproducible TUT goal per set. Reach momentary muscular failure with strict technique within a target rep TUT range. B. During the set, safe execution. Maintain full ROM. If the ROM shortens to squeeze out more reps, stop the set. That is already technical failure. Breathing and bracing. Exhale on the concentric effort. Keep your core firm to protect your spine. Spotter and safety. On heavy presses, bench, use a spotter or a machine. If you are at home without a spotter, prefer machines or safe variations. Seated press or dumbbell press with a safety stop. Final criterion: the last rep must be the last complete, strict, and unassisted repetition. That is what you record. See, after the set, recording and recovery record exercise. Weight/strict reps cadence. TUT RPE. Type of failure: technical versus absolute. Evaluate. If it was technical failure, do not count it. Reattempt another day after technical adjustments. Recovery: plan your next session according to the Mentzer protocol, depending on response. 4 to 10 days between intense sessions based on recovery. 5. Practical examples detailed. Gym and home. Example 1. Gym machine bench press. Heavy duty protocol warm-up, 40% times 12, 60% times 6. No fatigue. Effective set. Target load: give 6 to 9 reps with a 3/4 cadence, 7s rep. You reach failure. 8 complete reps, and on the 9th you cannot complete the concentric phase while maintaining technique. Record: 8 reps, 56s TUT, RPE 10. Absolute failure. Safety: the machine prevents being pinned. If using a free bar, a spotter is mandatory. Example 2. Gym. Squat leg press. If you don't have a spotter for free squats, use a leg press machine to safely take yourself to failure. Criterion: absolute failure on the leg press equals no more movement even with maximum push. DOMs possible: note it down and plan rest according to the protocol. Example 3. Home dumbbell press and push-ups. Dumbbell press without a spotter. Use a weight that takes you to failure in 6 to 10 reps. If you cannot safely lower the weight, consider doing sub-maximal rep sets with a slow cadence to increase TUT until safe mechanical failure. Push-ups take them to strict failure, full ROM. If no weight vest, increase TUT with a slow cadence 3/3, or use foot elevations to increase difficulty. Example 4. Home bicep curl and one-arm row curl. Frequent technical failure equals swinging with the hips. To avoid this, lower the load or use a slower cadence. Valid failure equals unable to flex further without breaking ROM. One-arm row. Similar case. If you start to twist your torso when failing, note failed due to technique and correct it. 6. Practical rules for deciding when to apply intensifiers. Forcing beyond, only for advanced lifters. You have 12 months of logbook with progression and know your recovery well. Use machines or a spotter. Negatives: forced reps or rest pause on stable movements. Limited frequency: apply a maximum intensifier no more than once every 4 to 8 weeks per exercise. Recovery plan: add 2 to 5 extra days before training that exercise again. Consider plus 200 to 400 kcal in extra sleep if the intensifier was very hard. 7. What to write in your logbook to make failure informative. Type of failure: technical/absolute. Strict reps: actual number of complete reps, cadence and TUT, RPE immediately after. Assistance spotter YN, and how much they helped. DOMs 0 to 10 at 24 to 72 H. Next decision: repeat if reps is greater than or equal to baseline, or active stop if RPE and DOMs are high. 8 examples of common mistakes and how to correct them. Error: counting reps done with cheating as effective. Give solution: stop the set before cheating. Use controlled cadence. Error: using failure as an excuse to train daily. Give solution: program objective rest for 10 days based on response, and judge by progression. Error: abusing intensifiers without tracking. Give solution: use one intensifier and record RHR DOMS progress for the following 2 weeks. 9. Mentzerian summary: The central idea: failure equals requirement, not goal. It is the signal indicating that the stimulus was sufficient. But without recovery, progression, and tracking, that failure is just suffering without gain. Mentzer wanted failure to be the trigger for adaptation, not the end in itself. Training to failure must be precise, safe, and measured. Section 2. Selecting failure as a stimulus, not a goal. Detailed section. The stimulus gives response method explained, step by step, many practical applications for gym and home. This section explains why taking a set to failure is only the first part of the process that Mentzer advocated. The stimulus, real growth, happens afterward, during recovery. If you don't understand and apply that distinction, failure becomes a spectacle of suffering without gains. We'll go point by point in great detail with practical examples and clear rules to apply in daily life. 1. Why understand failure? It doesn't guarantee growth without recovery. What failure is in functional terms: failure equals momentary maximum recruitment. When you cannot complete another repetition with correct technique, it is the point where high threshold fibers type 2 are activated and the necessary mechanical and metabolic signals for adaptation are generated. Why failure is not an automatic synonym for growth. Adaptation: protein synthesis, neural restoration, hormonal adjustment occurs after training, not during the set. If the stimulus failure arrives but the recovery window is insufficient due to caloric deficit, poor sleep, stress, excessive frequency, the anabolic response remains incomplete or is reversed. Fatigue dominates over supercompensation. Practical result: you can feel like you trained well and see no progress or even regression. Less strength, more fatigue. See variables that determine if failure becomes adaptation. Nutrition: sufficient calories and protein, plus 200 to 400 kilocalories and 0.8 to 1.6 grams per kilogram protein when aiming to grow. Sleep: 7 to 9 hours of good quality. Nighttime protein synthesis and hormonal regulation occur during deep sleep. Neural recovery: the CNS takes longer to recover than muscle. If you work near failure too frequently, performance drops. Frequency volume: too much frequency reduces the recovery window. Too much volume without recovery accumulates fatigue. Stress unrelated to the gym, work, relationships, travel, illness. Practical rule: Mentzer friendly. Failure equals trigger. If there's no trigger, there's no strong signal. But without the correct recovery: food, sleep, days off, the trigger doesn't produce a bullet, it produces wear and tear. Decision: before repeating failure on the same muscle group, confirm recovery with data logbook, reps, RPE, RHR. Sleep. 2. The universal error: bodybuilders who only seek to feel the burn or exhaust themselves. The pain equals progress mentality. Many confuse acute pain, pump, or burning with effectiveness. The result: they add sets, repetitions, and days because the sensation assures them they worked. Mentzer criticized this approach. Correct intensity is different from the amount of suffering. Why this strategy fails physiologically: sensation does not equal adaptation signal. Pump and burn are local metabolic signs, not measures of optimal recruitment or recovery. Fatigue accumulation: doing many sets to feel it increases cortisol, wears down the CNS, and reduces the anabolic response. Injury and technique: chasing pain pushes you to cheat technical failure, which reduces the load on the target muscle and increases injury risk. See how to recognize you're in the vicious cycle of pain for pain's sake. You train for more hours but do not increase repetitions or weight on your anchor exercises. RPE increases with the same load. Morning RHR increases. Sleep worsens. You feel a constant need to do more even after training. Practical correction: what to do instead of seeking pain: do fewer sets, but make the ones you do clean into valid technical failure. Measure if after 4 to 8 weeks there is no progression in strength reps. Don't increase pain. Correct recovery: sleep, calories, frequency. Avoid trendy techniques if you don't need them. Don't use rest pause, negatives just to suffer. Use them with purpose and record them. Example in gym versus home gym error: 5 chest exercises times 5 sets each until I feel it equals 25 sets. After a month, no progress. Gym Mentzer correction: 3 exercises gives 1 effective set to failure. Per exercise gives 30 to 45 minute session. Record and wait for recovery. Home error: 4 circuits of push-ups to failure every 48 hours. Home correction: 1 to 2 sets to failure of push-ups per session, with 5 to 8 days between intense sessions. Increase TUT if there isn't enough weight. 3. The stimulus is only the cause. Growth occurs afterward during rest. In-depth explanation: the cause gives effect logic. The golden rule: cause, the set to failure, high intensity, TUT, recruitment, process, biological response, anabolic signals, protein synthesis, neuromuscular adaptation, effect, greater strength, mass, if biology had the resources, nutrients plus sleep plus time. No shortcut. If you break the chain cause without allowing the process, there will be no effect. What does allowing recovery mean in practical terms? Time between intense sessions. Enough for reps. Weight to increase 4 to 10 days. Typical increase if you are advanced or used intense techniques. Food, sufficient energy. Prioritize carbohydrates around training to replenish glycogen and protein for synthesis. Sleep and stress management. Not just hours, but quality sleep routine. Environment. Psychological regulation. Avoid chronic stress. Use active rest when needed. See how to measure if the effect growth is happening. Concrete metrics, progression in anchor exercises. More reps or more weight with the same cadence. TUT. Rule number 1. RPE. Same weight with lower RPE equals better adaptation. TUT. Maintain or increase TUT with stable reps. RHR, HRV. Stable or decreasing RHR. Stable or increasing HRV gives better autonomic recovery. DOMS and performance. Moderate DOMS that resolves in 48 to 72H plus performance in the next session equals adaptation. Persistent DOMS plus performance drop equals fatigue. The example of an N=1 experiment. Apply stimulus and measure effect. Design 6 weeks. Choose 3 anchor exercises. Each session, 1 effective set to failure per exercise cadence, 3/5. Target TUT 4270s. Initial frequency, 1 session per muscle group every 6 to 8 days. Record weight, reps TUT, RPE RHR, sleep DOMS. Evaluation. If after 6 weeks you progress in is greater than or equal to 2 of 3 exercises, and RHR sleep are stable, gives stimulus plus recovery equals adaptation, gives continue or increase load. If not, gives diagnose and adjust 1 variable. What to do if you fail to achieve the effect. Practical algorithm. Review the cause. Was your set truly to technical failure? Correct TUT and cadence. Review recovery. Sleep, calories, stress, RHR, HRV. Adjust 1 variable at a time, plus rest OR plus calories OR. Correct technique, cadence. Reevaluate in 2 to 4 weeks. 4. Practical applications and checklists to take in your notebook. Checklist. Failure as stimulus before the session warm-up. 2 non-fatiguing warm-up sets. Cadence defined and noted. Rep TUT goals defined per exercise. Spotter machine, available if failing on dangerous movements. Checklist after the set. Immediate recording. Strict reps recorded. Type of failure. Absolute or technical. If technical gives doesn't count. TUT calculated and RPE noted. Rest plan decided. Tentative date for next session. Checklist. Recovery day 0 gives day 10. Morning RHR recorded daily. Sleep hours plus quality daily. Calories maintenance deficit surplus noted. DOMS recorded 0 to 10. Mood, energy level 1 to 10. 5. Common errors and Mentzerian phrases to avoid them. Error. I trained until I died, so I will grow. Gives false error. Counting reps done by cheating as progress. Gives doesn't count. Error. Increasing frequency without checking recovery. Gives path to stagnation. Mentzerian rule. Stimulus without recovery is wear and tear. Recovery without stimulus is inertia. Apply both with criteria. 6. Executive summary to memorize. Failure is necessary, not sufficient. Failure is the cause. Growth is the effect that depends on recovery. Always measure reps, weight, TUT, RPE, RHR, sleep DOMS. Judge by data, not by sensation of pain. If you want to progress, do effective sets, record, prioritize recovery, and adjust 1 variable at a time. Section 3. Factors that make failure work. Extensive, practical, and structured, in case you want to use it verbatim in the script or paste it into your logbook. Quick introduction. Taking a set to failure is the spark, not the fire. That spark only produces a fire. Real growth if the rest of the system is prepared. Correct intensity plus sufficient recovery plus planned progression. This is the core formula of heavy duty and the reason why 2 people who train to failure can end up with opposite results. Below, I explain each element in detail, with concrete examples, practical decisions, and an operational conclusion you can apply right now. 1. Essential formula. Intensity plus recovery plus progression equals heavy duty A intensity. What we mean here. Operational definition. A set taken to momentary muscular failure while maintaining strict technique. Practical parameters. Defined cadence, for example, 3S concentric, 4S eccentric. Target TUT per set 408 OS RPE 9 to 10 at the end. Why it matters. It recruits high threshold fibers type 2 and triggers the mechanical metabolic signal necessary to initiate adaptation. B. Recovery. What it entails. Components. Sleep, 7 to 9H of quality. Adequate caloric intake, slight surplus to gain mass. Maintenance, deficit when cutting. Sufficient protein rest between sessions. Heavy duty, typically 4 to 10 days per muscle group. Stress management and programmed. Deloads control metrics. Morning RHR, HRV, RPE in successive sessions. DOMS, sleep, and appetite. Why it matters. Protein synthesis, neural restoration, and hormonal adjustment occur after the stimulus. If there is no recovery, the signal from failure does not turn into growth. See progression. How the stimulus is validated. Simple rule. If there is no objective progression, more reps with the same load or more load with the same rep range cadence within a reasonable time frame, the stimulus recovery is not adequate. Ways to progress: add 1 to 2 reps in the effective set. Increase load by 2.5 to 5%. Improve TUT while maintaining technique, or reduce RPE for the same load efficiency. Check frequency. Validate every 4 to 8 weeks based on your session frequency. 2 real examples. 2 people trained to failure. Only one progresses. Why? Scenario: identical apparent stimulus. Both perform one effective set to failure on the chest press with the same cadence and equipment. Person A progresses. Sleep 8h regularly. Calories, slight surplus, plus 200 kcal day. Recovery. Respects 7 days between sessions. Does a programmed deload every 6 to 8 weeks. Recording logbook with reps TUT RPE. Adjusts if RPE rises or RHR increases. Result: plus 1 to 2 reps in 4 to 6 weeks. Load increased by month 2. Person B does not progress. Sleep 5 to 6h, irregular nights. Calories, deficit or low maintenance, insufficient for recovery. Recovery trains the same muscle every 3 days, high frequency, and adds accessory sets. Recording does not keep a logbook or compare data. Increases volume by intuition. Results: stagnant or decreasing reps, RPE increases. Feeling of exhaustion, possible loss of strength. Analysis: what explains the difference? Intensity alone occurred in both reached failure. Recovery was the discriminating factor. Person A allowed biological time and resources, calories, protein, sleep, to convert damage into synthesis. Person B did not. Progression was measured and sought by it. B relied on more and saturated the recovery window, degrading their ability to recruit strength in subsequent sessions. Practical lesson: do not assume that I reached failure equals progress. Check the response with data: reps, RPE, RHR. If you are not progressing, correct recovery before adding volume. 3. The role of volume, frequency, and rest. How they interact and how to decide a volume total amount of work. Heavy duty is based on the principle of minimum effective volume, 1 or very few effective sets per exercise. Relationship with intensity: with higher volume without increased recovery, the effective intensity per set usually drops. Accumulated fatigue gives worse set quality. Rule: prioritize one set of maximum quality over multiple mediocre sets that reduce real intensity. Example: 1 set to failure of 50s on the press, high quality, greater than 4 mediocre sets that only generate fatigue accumulation. B. Frequency: how often you work a muscle. Fundamental trade-off: more frequency gives more stimuli, but each stimulus reduces the time available for recovery. Advanced heavy duty: low frequency, 1 session per muscle group every 4 to 10 days to allow complete recovery of the CNS and tissue. How to decide frequency: observe your real recovery window in the logbook. In how many days do you match your previous performance? Adjust the frequency so the next session occurs when you are ready, not on an arbitrary calendar. See rest between sessions and deloads between sessions. Optimal rest varies by individual and by the intensity of the stimulus. Typical heavy duty range: 4 to 10 days. Programmed deloads: a work block 6 to 12 weeks, followed by a week of active or passive deload to prevent chronic fatigue accumulation. Intra-session rest: progressive warm-ups without fatigue, and avoiding approaching failure in warm-up sets. Maintain stable cadence and control 2TD. Practical interaction: volume times frequency times rest. High frequency plus high volume equals high probability of chronic fatigue if you don't increase rest or calories. Low frequency plus low moderate volume, ideal heavy duty, equals allows you to maintain very high intensity in each session and maximize performance per stimulus. Comparative example: program a high volume, high frec 5 sessions week, 12 to 20 sets week per muscle, gives high fatigue, rarely reaches real quality failure, uncertain progress. Program B heavy duty: 1 session every 7 days. 1 effective set per muscle, gives each set as maximum quality and adequately recovered, gives more reliable progression for naturals. For practical tools to apply this checklist and rules. Checklist: before adding more stimulus, ask yourself, did my reps or load increase in the last 4 to 8 weeks? If no gives, do not add stimulus. Is RPE maintained or lower for the same load? Do morning RHRV indicate recovery? Did I sleep well most nights? Is my appetite and mood okay? If most answers are no, prioritize recovery before increasing volume or frequency. Quick decision rules: not progressing gives first correct recovery. Sleep, calories, reduce frequency by 1 to 2 days. TUT cadence dropped gives first correct technique, lower load by 5 to 10% and redo controlled sets. Want to progress and everything above is okay, gives apply minimal progression. Plus 1 rep or plus 2.5% weight and record. How to measure progress: operational. Choose 2 to 3 anchor exercises. Record weight, reps, cadence, TUT, RPER, HR, sleep. Use a 4 to 8 week validation window. If there is no improvement and is greater than or equal to 2 anchors in that period, gives review. Example of a practical plan: 8 weeks. Applying the formula week 0 baseline, choose anchor exercises, record 7 days of RHR sleep data, do 1 effective session, weeks 1 to 4, repeat sessions with a 6 to 8 day interval, record, do not change variables except for minimal progression if it appears. Week 5, review data. If 2/3 anchors progressed, gives small load increase plus 2.5 to 5%, if not, gives apply correction. Add 2 to 4 days rest or increased KCOL plus 200 to 400 weeks 6 to 8. Reevaluate. If there is progression after correction, gives continue. If not, gives active rest for 7 to 14 days and gradual reintroduction. 5. Clear conclusion, operational. Failure works when it is part of a system. Intensity without recovery or progress is just wear and tear. The equation is simple and non-negotiable. Intensity correct failure, plus recovery, sleep, calories, rest between sessions, plus progression measurable and small, equals real growth. In practice, do effective sets. Record everything, respect your real recovery window, and progress only when the data confirms you are ready. That is heavy duty in its correct form, strong in cause, rigorous in verification, patient in application. Section 4, Beyond Failure, Advanced Techniques with Purpose. Extensive, practical, and true to Mike Mentzer's spirit, using intensifiers as specific tools, not as a routine, always controlling recovery and safety. Introduction. Why going beyond needs a plan? Mentzer insisted that failure is the tool, not the goal. Techniques like rest pause, pre-exhaustion, and negatives can increase the real intensity of the stimulus and help break plateaus. But if misused, they become useless fatigue, accumulation, and a risk of overtraining. This section explains what they are, why they work, how to apply them sensibly, when, how much, on which exercises, and how to integrate them while respecting the basic Mentzerian principle. Brevity and exactness. Train less, but do it better. 1. Rest pause. What it is, why it works, and how to use it. Detailed protocol. What it is and why it works. Definition. A set taken almost to failure, followed by brief pauses 8-2-0s to partially recover and perform a small number of additional repetitions. Mechanism allows you to squeeze more muscle fiber under tension near failure without doing multiple long sets. Increases metabolic stress and recruits additional high-threshold fibers. Advantage: higher accumulated intensity with relatively little additional volume. Risk: more neural and metabolic fatigue. Therefore, it must be used in moderation. How Mentzer used it. Principle: use it only with advanced lifters who keep records and know their recovery. Prefer machines or exercises where technique can be maintained and the risk of injury is low. 1 technique per cycle and per muscle group, rarely more than 1 to 2 times per month. Practical protocol. Safe example: exercise, leg press machine. Warm-up: 2 progressive warm-up sets, 50% times 8, 70% times 4. No fatigue. Effective set. Target weight gives. Perform repetitions to technical failure, for example, 8 reps. Rest pause. 1. Reduce weight by 5 to 10% or maintain weight plus 10 s rest. Execute 2 to 3 reps. Rest pause to 10 to 12 s rest. Attempt 1 to 2 additional reps if possible. Record: total, strict reps, TUT, RPEDOMS, and morning pulse in the following days. Frequency: apply to 1 exercise per session and repeat that option per cycle 4 to 8 weeks if recovery allows. Variant: safety with reduced weight in the pauses. Lower risk, more control. With the same load, harder. Only for very experienced lifters and with a spotter or safe machines. 2. Pre-exhaustion. Pre-exhaust: what it is, why it's used, and how to apply it. What it is and why it works. Definition: isolate the target muscle with a light isolation exercise before performing the compound movement, so the target muscle gets closer to failure during the compound. For example, flies before press. Reasoning: prevents synergistic muscles, for example, triceps deltoids, from limiting the failure of the target muscle pectorals. Increases tension on the area you want to hypertrophy. Risk: adds time, volume, and can extend fatigue. If not dosed correctly, it compromises recovery. How Mentzer applied its specific and strategic use: it served to ensure the target muscle received sufficient stimulus, especially if the biomechanics of the compound lift favored the synergists. Prefer machines for the isolation phase and avoid doing it chronically. Practical protocol example: target, pectoralist, major, pre-exhaustion machine, flies 10 to 12 reps, 3 halves, controlled cadence, not to absolute failure, RPE 8. Immediate compound, machine bench press, 1 effective set to failure, RPE 10. Notes: total work limited, only 1 isolation exercise plus 1 compound. Record: TUT and DOMs. Safe frequency: use pre-exhaustion on a specific muscle once every 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the reaction. Home alternative: band flies or dumbbell flies for 10 to 12 reps, as pre-exhaustion, followed by push-ups or dumbbell press with 1 effective set. 3. Controlled negatives: what they are, why they work, and how to do them safely. What they are and why they work. Definition: emphasize the eccentric phase of the repetition-controlled lowering. 3 to 8s, often with assistance in the concentric phase. If the goal is to overload eccentrically mechanism, tolerable eccentric strength is usually greater than concentric strength. Eccentric damage provokes robust signals for remodeling and growth. Risk: they significantly increase DOMs and damage, so they require extensive recovery and care to avoid injury. Mentzerian use criteria only for advanced lifters and uncontrolled exercises. Machines, rack with spotter. Few repetitions, 3 to 6 negatives per intensified set. Do not repeat frequently. Explicit recovery plan, at least 7 to 14 days before repeating intense work on the same group. Practical protocol example: exercise, bench press with spotter. Set reach failure on the press with assistance. Spotter helps you return to the starting position. 3 to 5 controlled negatives with 5 to 7 S eccentric each. Record DOMs and performance for the 2 following weeks. If DOMs 7 and performance drops, gives extend recovery. Frequency: maximum 1 session with negatives per muscle every 4 to 8 weeks, and only for those who have tried other strategies without progress. 4. How Mentzer integrated these techniques to go beyond without overtraining. Key Mentzerian rules: practical and non-negotiable. Use intensifiers only with a clear purpose to break a plateau in a specific exercise, not because it's trendy. Only one technique per cycle or per muscle group within the cycle. Never combine several at once. Prefer machines and stable patterns. Avoid intensifiers on technical exercises without a spotter. Increase the recovery window after using a technique. Add 2 to 7 days depending on intensity. Measure the effects in your logbook: reps, RPE, TUT, RHR/DOMS. If there is no progression after 2 to 3 sessions, do not repeat the technique. Review, recovery, nutrition, deload after frequent use. If there were 2 to 3 sessions with intensifiers in a cycle, schedule an active deload the following week. Safe application pattern example of an advanced cycle: 6 to 8 week cycle. Weeks 1 to 4, classic heavy-duty work. 1 effective set per exercise. Week 5, introduce rest pause in 1 key exercise, for example, leg press. Record the response. Week 6, return to normal sessions if progression. If no progress, active rest for 7 to 10 days and reevaluation. Deload in week 7 if there was a lot of stress. 5. Principle of brevity and exactness: train less but better applied philosophy. Central concept: brevity, minimize time and volume in the gym, only what is necessary to generate a stimulus. Exactness: each set must be technically clean with the planned cadence and TUT. Failure must be authentic. Desired result: maximize the signal-to-noise ratio. More adaptation per less accumulated fatigue. How to apply it: operational rules. Plan your effective set, cadence, target TUT, and termination criterion. Technical versus absolute failure. Avoid just in case. Do not add sets out of fear. Review your logbook before adding more work. If your logbook shows progress, gives continue. If not, gives review recovery instead of increasing volume. Advanced techniques equals tool, not religion. Use them only when execution, exactness, and recovery are controlled. Prioritize safety and control over the feeling of work. 6 signs that an advanced technique was useful versus counterproductive. Useful signals: increase in reps or load in the next 2 to 3 sessions. RPE stable or descending for the same load. DOMs present but resolved in 48 to 72H with no drop in strength. RHR/HRV returned to baseline quickly. Counterproductive alarm: extreme DOMs 72H plus performance drop. RHR plus 5 to 8 BPM persistent for 3 days. Loss of motivation or altered sleep. Infections decline in general state. Give stop and reevaluate. 7. Practical examples applicable to day gym and home. Case A: advanced in the gym, breaking a plateau on the leg press. Context: 3 months without increasing leg press. Intervention: rest pause. See protocol. Recovery: plus 3 days between sessions. Calories: plus 200 kcal day the week after rest pause. Record RHR. Expected result: if it works, gives plus 1 to 2 reps in 2 to 3 weeks. If not, gives active rest for 7 to 10 days. Case B: at home without machines. For those without a spotter or machine, use pre-exhaustion with bands or dumbbell flies followed by push-ups with elevated feet, taking the compound set to failure. Avoid heavy negatives without a partner. Higher risk at home. 8. Printable checklist: should I use an advanced technique today? Have I documented 8 to 12 weeks of logbook with a clear plateau? Are my recovery data RHR? Sleep good for the last week? Do I have access to a machine spotter for safety? Will you apply one technique in a maximum of 1 exercise per session? Do you have a recovery plan, extra days, calories, and a record to evaluate? If you answer yes to all gives, proceed with the planned technique. If you answer no to any gives, do not use the technique. Correct the missing variable. Conclusion: advanced techniques are not magic shortcuts. They are precision tools. Mentzer authorized them as specific resources to break plateaus when everything else, technique, nutrition, sleep, was in order. The rule is simple: use fewer techniques, but use them with exactness. Measure and let recovery validate. Train less, but better. That is the way to turn failure into real progress without paying the price of overtraining. We have reached the conclusion. Here is the essential information: what Mentzer meant and how to apply it, now presented with precision, examples, and measurable criteria. No vagueness, clear steps, metrics, and a mini plan to start today. 1. Failure is the trigger, but not the complete bullet. What it means: momentary muscular failure, not being able to complete another repetition with correct technique, generates the signal that can trigger growth. What it does not mean: reaching failure does not guarantee hypertrophy if recovery and resources do not follow. Growth occurs afterward, outside the gym. Practical consequence: think of failure as an activator, not an end goal. It fires the repair round. If you do not fuel and allow that repair, there will be no gain. 2. What you must apply from today: concrete steps. Implement this now. A. Record your workouts. Mandatory minimum logbook for each effective set. Note: date, exercise variant, weight, kilogram, strict reps, cadence, for example, 3/4, tut SRPE 1 to 10, DOMS 0 to 10, sleep last night, H quality 1 to 10, morning pulse, RHR, BPM. Notes: injuries, stress, alcohol. Example row. The 25th of August 2025, machine press, 80 kilograms, 8 reps, 3/4, 7s rep, tut 56s, RPE 10, DOMS 3, sleep 7.58, RHR 54. Notes: no spotter. B. Analyze recovery objective rules. Use these rules to decide whether to train again or stop. RHR plus 5 BPM sustained for 48 to 72H versus baseline gives alarm. HRV sustained drop greater than 10 to 20% versus baseline gives caution. DOTMESE has always eminarchy 72 horas gives OK. Persists greater than 72H and limits technique gives alarm. RPE reps, same load plus stable. Descending RPE or plus 1 rep equals progress. If RPE increases is greater than or equal to 2 without progression gives review recovery. Sleep. Average less than 6H for 3+ nights gives prioritize recovery before a new session. C. Use failure as a tool within a complete system. Effective set 1, set 2. Technical failure per exercise. Classic heavy duty cadence. Tut. Target 42 ATS per set. Adjust according to the exercise. Safety. Use machines. Spotter for heavy loads. At home, prioritize safe variations. Frequency. Schedule it according to your real recovery window. Recovery window equals days it takes to restore reps. RPE. Typical advanced heavy duty equals 4 to 10 days. Control. Do not increase volume based on feelings. First, check the data in your logbook. 3. Training hard is easy. Training smart is what very few do. How to translate it into concrete actions. Training hard equals reaching failure repeatedly without a plan. Easy but destructive. Training smart equals planning the stimulus, measuring the response, adjusting recovery, and validating by progress. Smart checklist before adding work. Have my anchor exercises progressed in 4 to 8 weeks? ROH, RHR, HRV, and sleep within the normal range? Can I maintain strict technique in the effective set? Will I change only one variable: weight, frequency per kilocalorie at a time? If any answer is no, no gives do not increase volume. Correct recovery technique. 4. Improve weak points. What to audit and how to do it exactly. Areas to audit and specific action. Technique gives record 1 set monthly. If ROM or control fails gives lower load by 5 to 10% and redo 2 sessions focused on cadence. Sleep gives if average less than 7H. Implement sleep hygiene. Fixed time. No screens 30 to 60 minutes before dark environment for 2 weeks. Measure effect on RHR. Nutrition gives if you want to gain plus 200 to 400 kilocalories per day and adequate protein. If cutting, reduce by 300 to 500 kcal but maintain protein. Recording gives if you don't keep a logbook. Start today with the template above. Without data you cannot correct. Periodization. Deloads gives schedule an active deload every 6 to 12 weeks, 7 days of low volume and intensity. Metrics to validate improvement: plus 1 rep or plus 2.5% load in 2 consecutive sessions within 4 to 8 weeks. RPE stable or descending for the same load. RHR returns to baseline within 3 to 5 days after an intense session. DOMS resolved 72 hours without impacting technique. Practical mini plan. What to do this week: -7 days. Day 1. Intense session as planned. 1 effective set per exercise. Record everything. Day 2 to 3. Control. Daily sleep plus RHR. No heavy training. Day 4 to 5. Recovery test. If RHR is plus or minus 2 BPM from baseline and energy is high, gives plan next session for day 6 to 8. If RHR is plus 4 to 5 BPM or DOMS 5, gives add 3 more days and optimize sleep called day 7. Weekly logbook review. Progress alarm signals. Decide on an action, maintain rest, increase KC. Closing. Mindset and phrase to take with you. Mindset. Seek evidence, not sensation. Phrase to repeat. I pull the trigger. Failure. I yield the bullet. Recovery to the body. I measure. I decide. I repeat. Final advice. Excellence in heavy duty is not about how much you suffer in the gym, but about how much intelligence you apply afterward to turn that suffering into progress.